My destinations have errors. What is up? HellaBass Live Monday, live from the truck during hockey practice. We just had some T-Bell. Haven't had T-Bell in like 2 weeks. We're going to recap Lake St Clair. Got some notes here. Also, questions will be answered. So what's up, Aaron S., Tyler, Frank? We're going to recap my experience Bassmaster Open, Lake St Clair. So last you heard from me, I was driving through Detroit, about to arrive on Friday night, July 5th. Pretty much got out there, pretty uneventful. A little bit of traffic in Chicago, not a big deal. I do notice a lot of fishermen tend to freak out about driving through Chicago and driving through Detroit. I don't get it. Doesn't freak me out that much. So if you were watching along on like my Instagram stories, I did wake up Saturday morning, put the master power on in the boat, and the motor started tilting up like automatically. So Uncle Marty and I spent probably a good 3-4 hours troubleshooting that, trying to figure out a workaround. We did figure out that if we powered it up and either hit the manual release valve or unplugged the motor trim motor connectors in the front of the motor with the cowling off, we could get it to like bypass that. It would run this cycle and it would stop. I could plug it back in, it would run normally. There was no marine shops open that morning. What's up, TK? Yep. We're talking about how to suck less next time you go to St. Clair. It was a rainstorm, so I think it was water related. My guess is maybe one of the trim switches actually got wet, or somehow one of the relays. Anyways, we bypassed it. We got on the water at like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning at the Harley ramp, and did the bypass thing. Went out fishing. It never acted up all day. It was a beautiful day. It was sunny. Got some things dried out. When I got back, it never did it. Next morning, it never did it. Never did it all week again. So to me, there was really no point in troubleshooting it, because I'm guessing the Mercury techs would just thought I was an idiot because it wasn't doing it. So something to be mindful of in the future, but I know how to work around it now. Maybe I'll never have like a huge rainstorm blowing exactly, but did lose a few hours the first day. And it might have been crucial because my plan was to start in Anchor Bay that morning before everybody else got out there and spend some time in Anchor Bay. And then I was going to roll down to the Mile Roads where my buddy Dustin Bliss was, who I was staying with, and we had decided we were going to work together. So he was texting me. He was like, showing me scale, picture of his bubble scale. He had a 4.9 and some other fish. So I didn't go to Anchor Bay that morning, and I went down to the Mile Roads and met up with him. Started heading out in a direction towards some stuff that I kind of wanted to hit, and caught a few smallmouth, and then literally one of my first fish dots that I saw flung a flatworm on its nose, and it was like a 4.5 pounder. So spent most of that day milling around the Mile Roads and a little bit south of there, and going in and out, checking depths, going north, going south, trying to expand that. And I don't know, I would add 19, 20 pounds the first day, caught a few fish, found some stuff, found kind of a random little rock pile, which had a bunch of fish on it, but they weren't big. But it was nice to know of a spot where like they were sitting that you could pull up and catch a few fish on. First day was pretty much all drop shots, a lot of flatworms, did experiment with a few other baits. Had experimented with 6-pound Tatsu as a leader. Had some breaking issues with that. scale bait. You don't think I have those, Kyle? They just didn't arrive before I left. um. So the first day, it wasn't too hard seeing the fish, especially in the area I was. The Mile Roads does not have a lot of big grass in it. It's a lot of short sand grass. The fish are pretty easy to see there. And the first weekend, I would say Saturday, Sunday, and Monday morning, if you put a drop shot on a fish's head on Lake St Clair, they were probably going to eat it. But that definitely changed. So the first day, what I remember was mostly Mile Roads down towards, yeah, Metro Park Mile Roads. Pretty much spent the whole day there. Caught I think 6 or 7 walleyes that night. Probably had 30 bass that day. So not a bad start. Feeling pretty good. Had some confidence. Saw some of the right size fish. Saw some 4 to 4.5 pound fish. Had a couple pods of fish located. So day 2, motor works fine. We get out early. It was light and variable winds that day, so Dustin and I decided to go down to the south end. We launched in the mouth of the Detroit River in the St. John Park, and we went out to the dumping grounds, to Bell Island, into Canada, and right away in the morning, I was kind of working through an area, and we were in some thicker weeds. Marty in the back hooked up. I think he first caught a big walleye, but then he hooked up and had a big smallmouth next to the boat. Didn't I think we'll have it on GoPro, but he lost it. But it was probably a 5-pounder on a DT10 or a DT8 or something like that. And we didn't catch any more fish right in that grass, but then I kept working out and kind of got into a little bit deeper zone where I was starting to see that like sandy patches where you had breaks, where you had transitions. It seems like you needed some kind of a transition. You needed to have perch present. And there I broke off on a fish. And then the next cast, I picked up a different drop shot. I actually was not scoping here. I was actually spot locked and just casting because I was on the phone with Dustin when I did it. And then the next one, I had a giant smallmouth. Didn't get to weigh it, but it was bigger than anything I caught all week. So I'm guessing it was 5.5 to 6 pounds. Had it right next to the boat, and I grabbed the line. Got it on video. You guys will see what a moron I am in my practice video. Broke the line right next to the boat. And then, like the next cast, I caught like a 3 3/4. So that was a good area. Spent some time expanding that area in the morning. Then we ran to Bell Hump. It was mostly small fish that I found there. Then we ran to a big cabbage flat in the middle of Canada. Caught fish there, but they weren't the right size. Then we kind of worked our way down towards the border and back towards the dumping grounds. Caught fish there. It wasn't a lot of the right stuff. So we finished back up in the dumping grounds that night, and I was working my way towards that spot in the morning, trying to expand upon it. And I found some rock piles. The dumping grounds are made up of places they dug out harbors and channels and stuff, and that's like the place they dumped the rocks and stuff from the where they were digging it out. And found some rock piles, and we started catching fish off them right away. They weren't very big, and I was actually not live scoping at that point. I was just using 360 and like casting to the rocks, and we were catching fish almost every cast, but they weren't the right ones. Then I got kind of hung up with my drop shot on one of these rock piles, so I got up on top of it, shook it free, spot locked again, and I looked down, and I guess you could see the blobs right next to the boat on the live scope. And so I dropped on the left side of my boat 3 times in a row and caught fish, but none of them were bigger than 2.5 pounds. And then I dropped down again, didn't catch one, so I just dropped on the right side of the boat, got a bite. It was a giant. It was a 5'1". So I was like, okay, not fishing these anymore. I was like, but there's probably more. So I started scanning around, and I found like 12 rock piles. Didn't fish any more of them. Headed in that night. It was like almost 8 o'clock by the time I got off the water. What's up, Clay? And then the next day, we did start in Anchor Bay in the morning. Launched at Anchor Bay at Selfridge. And first area I stopped in, didn't see much bait, wasn't much going on, so I idled up a ways, and I saw this like what I saw on my side imaging, it looked like a tree in the water, but it ended up just being a really tall thicket of grass. So started fishing there again. First fish I catch that day is a 5.3. It was like saw it on the scope, like 80 feet out, flicked a drop shot out there. And so that should have been a good sign. That should have been a signal. When you catch a 5.3, the first fish in a new area, that's the right kind of fish. Fished around them more, caught some, I think I caught a 3 3/4, saw some other fish. We got out of there and I went down. Where did I go? Kind of hopped out into the the neck down towards more the mouth of Anchor Bay. Caught some 3.5, 4 pounders in there, found some more rocks there. And then we kind of worked our way down, fishing more out deep, I think. I actually ran down to like Grosse Point that afternoon. Fish shallow. Caught a bunch of fish, not the right ones. Did some more stuff in the Mile Roads metro area. That was probably like outside of the 5.3, that was probably one of my lowest weight days. What's up, Dustin? We were so close. We and then Tuesday again, I think we started in Anchor again, and I looked to expand that area. We both found fish. And then we went back out in the lake again, and I was trying deeper out further from the Mile Roads, and I caught fish, but they weren't the right ones. Expanded on the area on the Mile Roads, felt more confident in that area. Saw some more 3.5, 4 pounders, but did see a switch later on that Tuesday where they were getting off the drop shot, and you definitely were getting more on like hair jigs, hanging minnows, things like that. They would come up and meet it in the water column, but a drop shot that would go right to the bottom, they'd look at it, they'd follow it down, and they would stop touching. So, but I was feeling pretty good because that day I could catch them on the minnows and those other things. And then basically Wednesday was kind of a washout. I had some stuff to do on the boat, get ready. It was blowing, it was rainy. Marty and I went out in the river for a couple hours, caught some largemouth and some smallmouth. So day one of the tournament, it's blowing out of the northwest. I was really torn, weather aside, whether I wanted to go down and start in the dumping grounds where I had saw 3 5-pound plus fish, versus Anchor Bay, which I saw quality, but I only saw 1 5-pound, but it was the biggest 5-pound fish. But the weather kind of made it an easy decision to start in Anchor Bay based on how it was blowing, because the dumping grounds probably would have been pretty much unfishable that day, at least in the morning. So I roll up in the morning. It's a little bit of a slow start. I think I started a little too far away from where I had like the fish were in the perch. Took me a while. I was probably scoping too slow to get up to them. My co actually caught the first fish. He was bombing a Ned out the sides. And actually my first 2 smallmouth were just like blind, like threw the drop shot up while I was on spot lock, and then like was like getting another rod out or like fixing the GoPro or something like that. I think my first fish was like a 3 1/4. My second was like a 2.8. But then I kind of got up into an area where it started to go down, and I was starting to see some fish, and they were not eating the drop shot. So I was kind of rotating back and forth the minnow, and I saw a fish off to my right, and I threw the minnow on it, hooked up on it. It was a 5.1. And then it kind of went down pretty quick. Minnow drop shot comboed together there. My co-angler had probably 3 fish before I had my third fish. But I got to like 19, 20 pounds real quick once it started. And then I worked through there and got up to probably like 20.5, almost 21. And it kind of slowed down again. I was seeing the fish, but they were ignoring the drop shot. They were coming up on my minnow, but they weren't eating it. They were really finicky. So I was still seeing fish in that area, but I was really having a hard time eating. There was probably 5, 6 boats around me. Aaron, I was using a matte black drop shot weight, the Bass Tech one. Um, Anyways, so I was about ready to bail on that. There was a little bit of wind still. And so I decided to drift with the current and the wind and go down. I picked up that OSP crankbait and I started like burning it back through where I had seen a lot of these fish. And I saw a fish rip up and then turn away. And then I saw another fish rip up, follow my crankbait to the boat. Then I saw it go down with the trolling motor. So I flipped a little perch colored drop shot, little party minnow, or it was a Hazedong shad or a megabass or something, or spark shad or whatever. And right next to that fish was fired up, spun to the boat, flipped the drop shot over. He ate it immediately. It was like a 2 3/4 pounder. Couldn't use it. So I was like, well, that was something, because I've had a bunch of fish not eat a bait, but once they followed it in, they were hot. And so like 5 more casts later, it happened again, and I saw a blob. I threw it down, and it was like an almost 4 pounder. So that was like my last upgrade of the day. But I got a few fish to like trigger on that crankbait that wouldn't eat it. I think I might actually got one to eat the crankbait as well. Just didn't help. So then I went to try a different area. Thought I would let that rest. Went over there for like an hour, fished a few spots in Anchor Bay. Didn't get much, but I was feeling pretty good because I was at like I knew I was pretty close to 21 pounds, and so I thought that would be a decent start for the day. And came back to that area again. I was still seeing fish, but I couldn't get them to bite. And my co-angler had stopped catching fish too. He had caught his morning limit on a Ned, and then he went to like a 1/2 ounce football jig with a sugar craw and upgraded a couple times, just blind fishing. And he said almost every fish that he caught, we cast it out. When he'd go to pick it up, they were there. So I went down to the neck down, tried to finish up on a few spots. I think my co-angler did catch one fish. Rolled into weigh-in, feeling decent. As you're sitting in bag line, you start hearing all the weights. You start looking at the leaderboard on your phone. You're like, man, they crushed them. So I think when I weighed in, slightly past middle of the pack, because I was about 110 day one. My back. The phone got too hot. So, anyways. Let me see if I can put this back in the holder here with the air conditioning on. Let's see if that'll cool down here if it's going to get too hot again. All right. And I was using like a Z2s on my hanging minnow and the Sakamata shad. Is the audio okay? Can you hear me, Brian? Now that I'm through the truck, I don't know if that's going to be good or bad audio. But day one, roll in, weighed in 110. I was like 21st when I weighed in, dropped all the way to 33rd at the end of day one. Almost 28 pounds leading the tournament. I think he needed 20 pounds, 12 ounces to be in the check. I think there was 60 bags over 20 pounds and 110 bags over 18 after day one. You could fish the Canadian side in the tournament, Matt. I didn't go over there at all. So optimistic after day one because I was still sawfish in my starting spot. I just didn't get them to bite in the afternoon. I knew they were still there. And I hadn't gone to the mile roads yet, and I hadn't gone to the dumping grounds, which were two areas that I felt pretty confident in. Now, I do know Dustin had did pretty decent in the dumping grounds. So day one, weather was fine. Could have ran everywhere I want. I almost went to the dumping grounds, but I heard it had gotten kind of blown out, and I was like, well, maybe I'll give it a little time. So I started pretty close to where I caught most of my weight on day one. Very first blob I see, I throw a Ned, like a cut down green pumpkin or a mud bug hula stick, catch a 3 1/4. And I was like, nice. Like, we're got a quick one. This is good. Proceed to fish for there for the next 2 hours and 2.5 hours. And all I catch is a couple drum and a walleye. My co-angler does catch his 3 fish on a spy bait, a dark sleeper. Yeah. But I can't catch a bass to save my life. Doesn't matter if it's a drop shot. Doesn't matter if it's hanging a minnow. Doesn't matter. I tried a bunch of different things. I could see them there. I couldn't catch them. It was hazy, overcast, no wind. So I was like, well, maybe it'll be better when the sun comes out. I was like, I want to go try those other areas. So I pull out of there with 1 fish, 3 1/4 at like a little after 9. And I go to the mile roads and I see fish immediately again, and I can't get them to bite. My co-angler catches a nice one on a spy bait. Maybe I catch one small keeper there, but frustrating because I can't get them to eat the drop shot. I can't get them eating my minnow. And I don't know. Things are, I don't know if I'm fishing too fast, if I'm not fishing heavy enough weight, I'm not fishing light enough weight. Do I need to change baits? I'm trying things. I'm going to a lighter minnow, going to a heavier minnow. These fish, obviously, in both these areas have been pretty pressured, both popular areas I was in. So then I try to run to where I found that rock spot with Marty the first night where there were just a bunch of 2+ pounders. Like, just put 5 in the box, get your head reset. Try to run there. There's 2 boats sitting on it. So then I was like, I'm going to the dumping grounds. So then that's like another probably 15 miles. Let's get down there. Nobody's where I want to fish. First rock pile, throw to it, hook up on like a 2.5, 3 pounder, try to boat flip it, break it off. Like, this day is just not going well. Pick up my other drop shot. Takes me a while, but I fill my limit. Not big, right? I got 1 3 pounder, 3 2 pounders, and 1 under 2 pounds. Cull one time, get rid of the dink, another 2+ pounder, go back. Then I try to go run another area, and then I run an area where we, saw those 2 to 3 5 pounders in practice. There was still perch there, but I didn't really see much on scope there. I didn't get any bites, and at like 1 o'clock, I pull the plug there and head back to the dumping grounds. And I kind of work further down, different line, and I catch like a 3 pounder almost right away on a spy bait. Eats it on the fall. And I continue to work that area for like super hard, spy baits, little swim baits, drop shots, hanging minnows, trying all kinds of different things, seeing fish. Cannot get them to bite. And I run out of time. Fish one more spot right by the ramp, catch 2 short fish, and go in with my head hanging, super frustrated. I thought I had 12 pounds. I actually had 13.5 or 13.9 or whatever.
Yeah, I probably could have committed the spy bait more. I was throwing a 90 size on a bait caster. Maybe I should have thrown the 80 on a spinning rod more. It's not something I did a lot in practice. Not something I've done a lot outside of this week. Um, yeah, but things just didn't. I just didn't make the right adjustments fast enough, and yeah, that's how it ended up. But I conferred with the people that were fishing next to me in the mile roads because I talked to Bart and like literally the fish, like you threw your drop shot. It wasn't that they were just like not coming to your bait. Some of them would and then turn away, but sometimes they would just like you throw your bait in and they would run away. But all right, so that's how it went. Um, so Lake St Clair is massive. It all looks the same on the map. Um, there are subtle differences that you can pick up on, but I was not able to figure out how to see those differences without having my trolling motor down. So like I hadn't figured out how to do it with 2D or side imaging to do it fast. And that's something that would be really, if you could start to do that and put that together, know what you're looking for on 2D and side imaging, you could break down water a lot faster on St. Clair. I definitely think I spread myself out too much. I tried to fish too much. I tried to fish Canada. I tried to fish the dumping grounds. I tried to fish Bell Hump. I tried to fish near the shipping channel on the flats. Tried to fish Anchor. Tried to fish Metro. Tried to fish the mile roads. Tried to fish Gross Shores. Like it was too much. I should have limited myself much more. So that was part of the issue. I did not throw any big baits to speak of. Although I do wish I kind of maybe would have thrown a glide and an anchor to try to pull fish up. That might have worked. I mean, I threw like a DT10. That's probably the biggest. I did throw one of the mid dive Marty baits. I definitely spread myself out too much. I should have not avoided the obvious, which was Anchor Bay. I found enough in there to know that I'd have a starting spot or a spot to end up. But when I caught a 5-3, I should have spent and had that one area. I should have doubled and tripled down on Anchor Bay and found more areas to run within Anchor Bay, so that if my fish were pressured and acting weird, I had to kind of rotated more things in Anchor Bay. Um, the drop shot fatigue was a real thing. I should have got off the flatworm. I should have probably went with this baby Z2, although I did try the small Hazedong shad, the 2.75 Hazedong shad, during the tournament. And the only fish I caught were the ones that came in on the crankbait on that. So I think they would have hit a boot if I would have dropped it down on them. I think I went light drop shot. I think I should have went heavier drop shot. I think I should have just like had it just like land right on them, like react. I think that slow fall, they would come up and look at it, follow it down, and get too good a look at it. So I wish I would have went heavier on my drop shot, even in Anchor Bay where it was shallower. I wish I would have went Z2, baby Z2 on my drop shot more, because one thing I did notice on live scope is that your flatworm, when you see the drop shot, you see the bait and the drop shot coming down on live scope. The flatworm would just settle on the bottom, but the Z2 would stay separated. Like you would see the drop shot go, but the bait would hover above the grass. Maybe that sitting in the fish's face would have converted a few key bites. So that is something I wish I would have tried. I wish I would have went to, instead of going a quarter ounce drop shot, I wish I would have went to more 3/8 and half ounce drop shots. And I wish I would have went to more of a floating bait, more of a minnow bait. I wish I would have thrown the bigger baits more, like the 4-inch and 5-inch, like jerk shad, Z2s, things like that, instead of going smaller all the time. Clay, I didn't throw the 2.75-inch tube, but I did throw the little Great Lakes Finesse tube, which is pretty much a 2.5-inch tube. And I caught some fish on it, but it wasn't anything great. Maybe on a heavier head, it would have been good. Bait fuel, I did spray some bait fuel, even though I've never really used it before on some of my baits. I also sprayed Gulp inside my Max Scent bags to double up on Gulp and Max Scent. Let's see. I wish I would have spent more time practicing hanging a minnow. I wish I would have played around with bigger minnows, different size heads, and got more practice, because I think that you watch the final day, that's how the guys, almost all of them, caught their fish, especially in Anchor Bay in the areas where they were pressured, was hanging a minnow. And it's not as easy as it looks when they're biting. It is really easy, but when you got to like finagle them into biting, there's more to it. And I needed more tricks up my sleeve on the hanging a minnow and mid strolling for sure. Uh, so that those were kind of some of the things. But obviously, I think it was more about area. But being able to catch those fish that were super pressured was definitely part of the deal. Clay, you're right. If you're first, you are last, and that's part of the reason I went to the dumping grounds, because I thought that is where I could get multiple 5-pound bites and get back in this thing. Because I went out with the mindset that day on day 2 not to catch 18 or 19 pounds and hoping to squeeze out a check. I was thinking, how do I catch 23 to 24 to have a shot at the top 10? Because if you don't make the top 10, you can't win this tournament. It definitely didn't work out. I fell far short, but that's how I started the morning. But so I definitely was not happy. I was really frustrated. There was a lot of other anglers that were very frustrated as well. Um, yeah, a lot of learnings there. But yeah, definitely, at minimum would have liked to cash a check to have a top 40 and not have 123rd or whatever it was on my Bassmaster bio. But but Tad caught him in the river. So good job, Tad. He busted 23 pounds in the river on day 2. Uh, so it was a good learning experience. And I think the other thing, I should not have been afraid to fish new water. I should have either just started fishing new water in Anchor or started fishing new water in the mile roads. I probably got a little too hung up in fishing the same areas where I knew there were fish, because those fish were very pressured. So that was another thing I should have. And that comes back to like having that scope mentality to be able to just put it down and go find fish. And I definitely got way more comfortable with front facing sonar and using it this week and practicing this summer. But in a tournament situation, just to like say I can put it down anywhere and put the trolling motor on and find some versus just circling the same areas, that probably would have served me way better on day 2 for sure, and even just the end of day 1. How long were your days in practice? We would typically get on the water between 5:30 and 6 and get off the water between 7 and 8. So 12 to 13. Tournament days were 6 to 2 if you were first flight and 6 to 5:20 if you were flight 20. Both of my days were 6 to 3:30, 3:40, because I was right in the middle. And that's what I wanted. I wanted like moderately long days both days. Turns out I could have been way better off getting an early boat draw day 1, because I had all my weight before noon. So having a 2 o'clock would have been just fine on day 1, and I could have used a lot more time to try to get more fish in the boat on day 2, but that's not how it happened. You do feel like your reputation is on the line. You feel like guys are gonna like look at your Bassmaster bio and go, "Man, this guy sucks. I thought he knew how to catch smallies. I can't believe he only caught 13 pounds on Lake St Clair." But yeah, and I thought, last year the Elite Series, it was obvious that Anchor Bay was a deal. It was a 100-boat tournament. This time, and they only had like 2.5 days of practice. This time it was 225 boats. And obviously everybody's known about Anchor Bay since last year. And with 4+ days of practice, I just thought it would crumble, and it definitely did not. Now, there were some guys that didn't. There was a lot more guys besides the 6 that made the top 10 that fished in Anchor Bay, but I should have stayed there. Hopefully, she's doing okay, Tom. But it basically went down. The people that were in the top 10, 6 of them were basically in Anchor Bay or the neck down of Anchor Bay. The other 3 to 4 were right on the shipping channel edge. So I never went out. I didn't think the fish this early in the year were all the way out at the shipping channel in 18 to 21 feet. But there was definitely good quality fish out there. And I never actually went out that deep because when I was fishing with the mile roads and the Metro, we were all right. We might have to hold this like right in front of the air conditioning vent. Yeah, my phone got too hot again. So Brad Getz as a co, he was good. He caught fish behind me. He was super respectful. Um, Helpful, was checking my fish, checking his fish. I mean, he definitely stayed on my way. He fished his own way out the back and out the side, caught nice fish. So, yeah, Brad was awesome. So was Gary the second day. There was a few guys I beat for sure, but if I would have caught another 21 pounds and finished 35th or 40th in catch check, I wouldn't be so mad. But yeah, and then I lost a panger. So um, uh, Ish Monroe had 23 pounds largely on largemouth day one, but he didn't back it up. He had like 14 pounds day two. um, Never caught any largemouth in the lake, only when I got up shallower, like in Anchor and the river. So, but yeah, I was just saying, yeah, I thought Anchor would crumble, and I tried to outsmart the lake, and that didn't work. So lesson learned there. When I caught a 5.3, I should have leaned into that, and that's probably the biggest takeaway. And then having more baits ready, more understanding how to catch those finicky fish. But overall, learned a ton, had a great week, had a lot of fun, didn't have any major catastrophes, breaking anything. The truck was good on the way back. The boat trailered fine. The electronics were good outside of that little tilt trim thing. Cost me a couple hours, but I'm excited to learn and keep going forward. And that's kind of the recap of Lake St. Clair. So I think Wednesday night, ICAST preview, probably with Baitman and Punch. So we'll have 3 talking heads talking about ICAST for the bait nerds. And I think there's a video that just came out on my channel like literally 30 minutes ago about chicken jigs. I'll have probably a practice video a vlog travel style practice, see some of the bigger fish I caught in practice, probably next week, and then probably tournament video the following week. So got some good content regardless, some good lessons learned. Then time to start focusing on leech. Did I ever come to a conclusion on tilt and trim? No, it just started working. You have to go back, and that kind of started there pretty early in the video, Nick, but the gremlin left. But hockey's over here in about 20 minutes. My phone hopefully won't melt down again. Thanks everybody for tuning in to the Lake St Clair recap breakdown. Last call, I guess there's any questions I didn't answer. I thought I tried to keep up on them. But it is a fun lake, but it also can be pretty frustrating because there's a lot of stuff to fish, and it's hard to key on the fish because everything's so subtle and everything looks the same. But thanks everybody. We'll let you guys go on a Monday night. You can catch some of your other favorite streamers tonight. If you missed it, should be a new video out on the channel that just came out a little bit ago, probably right when I started streaming. And we'll see you Wednesday night. We'll talk iCast. So come with your questions, come with your favorite things you do and don't like about iCast, and we'll talk about them Wednesday night. So as always, here to help you guys catch more big bass and suck less.